Greetings, everyone. It is a relatively cool, and by cool I mean it's not blistering hot already, morning here in southeast Georgia, about 75 degrees. So as nice as it really gets in the middle of summer, as the sun is rising. I'm doing pretty good. I slept in more than I wanted to, so I missed my workout time, so I'll have to make up for it this evening. But my legs are killing me from yesterday, so that's probably a good sign. Yeah, I don't really have much to start off the day with, so let's jump into the should be a little bit of quick news, like the NPR GPB quick broadcast, and then jumping into the Marketplace morning report.
His conversations with Vladimir Putin have led him to doubt Putin's interest in a ceasefire with Ukraine.
Vladdy Poo.
I always hang up and say, well, that was a nice phone call, and then missiles are launched into Kiev or some other city.
Now Trump has threatened harsh measures against Russia if it doesn't make a deal. We'll have more coming up.
What's funny about that is during that, I guess that press conference, or I guess it was a press conference because the press was allowed to ask questions during it while he was there with that NATO dude. I forget his name, top of my head. But the president was like, Putin's a mean man. He's a tricky dude. He's fooled Clinton. He's fooled Bush. He fooled Obama. He fooled Biden. But he didn't fool me. He didn't fool me once. And then he goes to explain, I'd have these real nice phone calls, and it'd be like, he seems like he's really warming up for a deal, and we're going to start getting towards peace. And then he'd bomb Ukraine 2 hours later. I'd be like, oh, what the heck? How did that happen? And then it happened 4 more times. And I'm like, oh, how did that happen? It's like, bro, you literally just described being fooled by the leader of Russia. Like, what? He hasn't fooled me, except for those 4, 5, 7 times. That's kind of what Russia's been doing for the past 6 months, especially since Trump has gotten back into office, which is when the Ukrainian offensive or American backing starts to ramp up, he's like, let's restart negotiations to kind of back off. And then once negotiations look like they're fiddling out, then he starts bombing again. So it's absolutely ridiculous. So,
list of ways to retaliate should the U.S. go ahead with 30% tariffs threatened by the president over the weekend. These include tariffs on $72 billion worth of American-made goods, including car parts, that's a dig at the U.S. auto sector, and aircraft, that's a swipe at Boeing.
The U.S.
There is one state in the U.S. in particular that exports more than any other to Europe,
EU revenge
and that would be Texas. Marketplace's Elizabeth Trobal has that.
EU trade supports some 280,000 jobs in Texas, according to the European Commission. Texas exports about $100 billion of goods and services to Europe. They include things like chemicals, aerospace products, resin, and professional services.
That's when, of course, it's pretty easy to start losing that business to other people because it's mostly relationship-based.
That's Texas economist Ray Perryman, who says above all other exports, when we look at the EU-Texas trade relationship, energy is king.
We have a lot of oil and gas activity, a lot of petrochemicals, a lot of, more recently, liquefied natural gas.
And in the unlikely event these tariffs actually happen and Europe retaliates, Kishore Gawande with UT Austin says,
That doesn't make great sense from a Texas point of view because, we export all this LNG.
Liquefied natural gas is a growing Texas export, and it's helped Europe decrease its reliance on Russian fuel. In the Dallas Fed's recent survey, several energy firms cited tariffs as hurting the sector and increasing costs. I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Now, S&P and NASDAQ.
You can really only use LNG in power production. You can't put natural gas in your car and run it. And not every power plant can use natural gas, you know, like they have to be designed to combust natural gas. And a lot of power plants here in the U.S. do. And there are conversion plans, and there have been conversions of old coal plants to burn natural gas and use that as a power source for electrical power generation. The problem is that takes time, that takes money, it has to be economically feasible. But I guess, you know, if no one's buying LNG across the pond, well, it probably gets a lot cheaper here in the States. But either way, that's not good, because we should diversify our energy portfolio, i.e. get more green energy, get more renewable.
What is the bottom line for the Earth's heating climate?
The law is really going to slow down the transition away from fossil fuels to cleaner energy sources, at least here in the U.S. It phases out tax credits for things like electric cars and home EV chargers, rooftop solar panels, heat pumps, making all of those things far more expensive for consumers. Commercial wind and solar projects will also now have to meet strict new deadlines to qualify for credits.
In fairness, EV chargers can be pretty cheap
subsidies
if you do them right.
Fossil fuel extraction. All told, an analysis by the UK climate site Carbon Brief estimates U.S. emissions will now drop by just 3% by the end of this decade, compared to the goal of 40% under the Biden administration.
Wow, that's
All
ass.
right, so we might get 3% instead of 40%. Now, where does all this leave?
It's a lot of extra carbon
the rest of the world.
in our,
I mean, this is very much a global
in our
matter.
atmosphere.
Yeah, well, experts I've been talking to say it definitely hurts our standing in the world, not just in terms of climate leadership, but also economically. I recently interviewed Bill McKibben, the environmentalist and writer, and he says in particular China has taken a big lead on clean energy. It's currently building about half the world's capacity, and it's exporting its solar panels and EVs around the world.
Yep.
We're essentially ceding the future to the Chinese. And it's possible that 20 years from now, the U.S. will be a kind of museum of coal-fired power plants and internal combustion engines, while the rest of the world has moved on to cheap, clean technology.
And you said some of these tax credits don't expire right away. I guess that means folks could use them if they act soon.
Yeah, pretty quickly. If you want to buy a new electric vehicle, you have until September 30th of this year, so not much time.
That's quick.
That's
You
worth
got 2
up
months.
to $7,500 off a new car, or up to $4,000 off of a used vehicle, depending on your income. For rooftop solar,
Dang,
your
why is the
system has
radio
to be
already cracking
fully
up already?
installed by December 31st of this year to qualify. So experts say, you know, it's still possible. If you call around to installers, you can see how much of a credit is available to you and whether they can get you on their schedule.
Amy Scott hosts Marketplace's Climate Solutions podcast called How We Survive. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts or stream it off of marketplace.org. Amy, always good to catch up.
You too, David. Thanks.
That was Marketplace's David Brancaccio there. Our producers are Ariana Rosas and Erica Soderstrom. Our senior producer is Alex Schroeder. Our supervising senior producer is Meredith Gerritsen-Morgan. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
This is 90.3 FM, WPBQ and WPBQ HD Kingsland, part of the Georgia Public Broadcasting Radio Network.
From the GPB Newsroom, I'm Devins Wald. The U.S. Postal Service Distribution Center continues to struggle with operations. More than a year after its opening caused frustrating delays in mail delivery across the state. GPB's Sophie Gratis reports.
The assessment released last week comes from the Office of Inspector General and is based on observations at the postal facility in Palmetto, south of Atlanta. It finds improved service performance, but it still remains below national averages and well below agency goals. The audit questions about $16 million in spending. It also shows about 1 in 5 employees aren't showing up to work on any given day.
What?
The facility's managers disagree with many of the report's key findings and recommendations. The Palmetto Mail Distribution Center and others nationwide have come under intense scrutiny in recent years. The head of the beleaguered U.S. Postal Service resigned in March. For GPB News, I'm Sophie Prados.
Atlanta's first Major League Baseball All-Star game.
I don't care about baseball. I'm curious. I mean, it was done by the Inspector General, so I think it's worth at least taking some credence to it. But like, you got to ask yourself, like, why are people not showing up to work? You know, is it because they hate their job? Is it because working at the post office just sucks? Is it management issues? Is it transportation issues of their own getting to work? Is it family issues that are getting in the way of them, getting to work? You know, they're having to manage sick kids or getting them to school, or maybe they have a family member that has their own issue. Like, you can't just like immediately go to, wow, some lazy people working at the post office, because I doubt that. Most people, they want to go to work, they want to get paid, they want to do a good job. That is a fundamental philosophy I have when it comes to people who work. You want to do something good, especially if you're working for like a government service. You're now working for not like yourself to make money, essentially. Like if you do at like a private company or something, you're working to serve the people. So I mean, I would hope that would give most public servants, a little bit of a kick in the butt to do a good job. But back to my original point, why are these people not getting to work? I'm wondering if it's either a cultural issue, and by cultural issue, I mean like a leadership issue of creating an environment that is hostile towards the workers. And I don't mean that necessarily in like, physically violent or anything like that, but hostile as in demotivating the people who work there to actually do a job and do a good job. Or is it issues with the people that work there, within their own personal lives that's getting in their way of being able to balance, working a full-time job and taking care of their own necessities? Whether that is, the necessity of being able to get to work in the first place. I mean, this says it's in south of the Atlanta metro area. So, is there public transport that can get them to their job? I mean, it's a government job. The government can pay for anything, especially to help get people to work. Or, is it family issues? Are these people not, receiving the necessary family health care to be able to put those things aside because they know they're taken care of, so they can go to work and earn a paycheck to, continue supporting their family that way? Do they have to support their family directly by not showing up to work in the first place? So just some thoughts, and these are things that you should, apply to any situation like this, because it's not an individual who's not showing up to work who has a problem. This is a cultural issue. There's a bigger issue at hand, and it's not going to be an individual problem of, man, this guy's just lazy or this gal's just lazy. That's so smooth-brained to think about it like that.
But NPR's Jonathan Lambert reports that U.S. foreign aid cuts could reduce supply.
Right now, HIV prevention drugs come mostly in the form of daily pills. While those are highly effective, sticking to a daily schedule can be a challenge for a lot of people. The new twice-a-year injection is called lenacapavir, and it could be much easier to take. The WHO says it represents the next best thing to an HIV vaccine. WHO's official recommendation should prompt countries around the world to approve the drug, as the US FDA did last month. But US funding makes up a sizable chunk of global HIV prevention spending, and public health experts worry that steep cuts by the Trump administration could limit lenacapavir's reach. Jonathan Lambert, NPR News.
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he'll make a third-party run for mayor of New York as an independent. He ran as a Democrat in the primary last month and lost to progressive Zohran Mamdani. Running as an independent now keeps him in the race. Cuomo resigned as governor in 2021 after allegations of sexual harassment, which he denies. The mayoral election in New York is in November. Current Mayor Eric Adams is also running as an independent.
If it wasn't true, why'd you resign?
The U.S. is imposing a 17% duty on most fresh tomatoes from Mexico, effective immediately. The Florida Tomato Exchange Trade Group says it's a victory for American tomato farmers. Critics, though, say the import tax will make tomatoes cost more. Yeah. I'm Kristen Wright, and this is NPR
That is
News
true.
in Washington.
Support for
At least we can
NPR
grow tomatoes in the
comes from
United
NPR
States.
Stations. Other contributors include
Unlike
Cigna
bananas.
Healthcare, a health benefits provider
And
that
mangoes.
advocates for better health through every stage of life. Learn more at Cigna.com. And listeners like you who donate.
I'll just say it real quick. It's gross that Andrew Cuomo, who lost his election, or his primary election, it's like, no, I'm not quitting. I'm gonna keep going. I mean, Cuomo really represents everything wrong with the modern Democratic Party. He is he's an heir to another politician. His dad, Mario Cuomo, was big in New York politics, right? He served as governor already. He had a sex scandal, which he resigned for. He cozied up to the Trump administration before COVID. So and he really did a lot of policies that took away from working Americans, especially a lot of working Americans in New York City itself. But that, of course, anything that affects working Americans in one place, if it's under the same jurisdiction, is going to affect working Americans in the other, and really just benefited, the rich who are in other parts of New York State. I mean, he took money away from public transit in New York City to give it, or to allocate it to rich cities, non-working class communities. And by non-working class, I mean make a lot more money than you and me people. That's where those resources went. So he's just the iconic, just trash tier Democratic politician, and he thinks he deserves to be the mayor of New York. He thinks he deserves to be in leadership, right? The voters owe it to him. He doesn't owe it to the voters. He has his entire mentality flipped around, and I think it's going to end up splitting the vote a little bit between people who prefer establishment politicians, and really you're going to have two politicians that are effectively Democratic establishments that are not running on the Democratic ticket, because one of them didn't run, the current mayor, and the other one lost the primary election, Cuomo. They're going to be backed by, big money donors, so corporations, real estate companies, Wall Street, lots of Wall Street, because, that's where New York City, or that's what New York City has. They have Wall Street, and they have a bunch of other industry as well. Not industry, but business, I guess you would say. And then AIPAC money, people who want to continue the war upon the people of Gaza, and they want to do it quietly, or they want to get a pat on the back for, murdering children. So those are the people that are going to be funding Eric Adams. Those are the people that are going to be funding Cuomo, and they're going to be throwing some money towards Mr. Siwa as well, the Republican candidate for New York mayor. So just keep that in mind. I know this is directed towards people in Georgia, but if you know somebody up in New York or New York City, share that with them. Though I'm sure it's pretty plain as day what it is. All right, about to turn this back on. It's probably going to be crunchy.
Yet the fact never ended. We also heard from the Kremlin's point management.
Oh yeah, that is crunchy. All right. We'll probably end it about right here. There's one thing I want to talk about that came from yesterday as well during the press conference with the president. He mentioned his sorry, saw a driver on the road. He mentioned how he was going to have punishment tariffs for Russia if they don't come to a ceasefire decision within the next 50 days, which is a lot of time to, figure out peace, in my opinion, when we'd been having, peace talks for the last 6 months. He was going to end the war in 24 hours, if you don't forget. And it's been a little bit more than 24 hours, just a teens. So the tariffs on Russia are kind of pointless, but there are secondary tariffs that are a part of that as well. And those secondary tariffs are going to be 100% on major trading partners with Russia, which is a good idea, I think, if you want to pressure countries and you want them to divest economically from Russia. You basically put up trade barriers between the largest consumer force in the world, which is the American economy. We buy. That's really all we do. It's not all we do, but it is a major component of what the American economy is buying stuff from other countries as endpoint products, or buying stuff from countries doing like the last step of manufacture and then buying it or consuming it locally and maybe selling a little bit off. But that's not a bad idea. But currently in Congress, I think the bill's still in committee. I'm gonna look it back up today so I can see if any of my local reps, or see if my House rep or either of our state senators, Ossoff or Warnock, are on those committees. If there's a version of it in the Senate. For a bill that would put 500% tariffs on any company that buys Russian oil, which would be huge. You basically just block all trade altogether. It would be no trade whatsoever, and that's a heavy, that's big, and that's how you make a country divest from a warring state, a state that is committing war crimes. They invaded a foreign country for the sake of imperial ambitions. They wanted to steal land and resources and all that to go back to their glory days of empire. So that's how you do it. It might backfire. There is a possibility that it will backfire, and those countries will just sell their stuff other places, but it's probably not gonna be Russia if they're gonna, shoot their money, sell their goods somewhere else, because the Russian economy is basically just built entirely on war right now, funding their war and producing new weapons for war and buying equipment for war. Specifically, their war in Ukraine, and then some trade with China and India and Brazil. So keep that all in mind. This could backfire, but I think it's not a bad idea. The way you stop countries like this is economically, and when you are the world consumer, if it doesn't hurt them directly, if that doesn't work, you hurt all their allies, you hurt all their economic partners, and you make it infeasible for them to sustain such a policy. So call your House rep, call both your senators, tell them you support the the 500% tariff bill. It is a legal way to implement tariffs, not this crazy stuff that was already deemed by trade courts to be illegal. The Trump tariffs have been struck down by the courts of like, hey, this is illegal, but it was they're being continued by an appellate judge, which is crazy, but that's the court system for you, unfortunately. Which is, it has its goods and its bads, you know. You win some, you lose some. But yeah, if you agree with that idea, if you agree that we should be hurting Russia's allies, their economic allies, to force them to divest from Russia, which will then cripple Russia so they stop killing Ukrainians, yeah, that's how you do it. You hurt them economically. You hurt their friends, so their friends abandon them. So that's all I got for the day. I hope you all enjoy your Tuesday. And yeah, just have a good one.